Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to invite you to the Audit Committee meeting for Tuesday, the 9th of February. I'd just like to advise that this meeting will be live streamed to both YouTube and subsequently placed on the Council's website. If you decide to remain in the meeting, it will be taken that you have given consent for both yourself and any other person you are responsible for to be recorded as stated. Right then. Apologies.
Councillor Mrs. Madison.
Substitutions.
None for this meeting.
Declarations of interest.
None received.
Members' dispensation.
None given.
Minutes of last meeting.
Members will note that Lisa has sent an email out this morning as she's put these are the minutes from the 20th of January when actually there should be the minutes from November 2020. So she has reset them this morning.
Okay, thank you. Right, internal audit progress report.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Tracy Henderson. I'm Interim Audit Manager of Durham County Council. I'd like to present with you item 6 on the agenda, which is the Internal Audit Progress Report. For members' information, the details of the report are from page 5 onwards. So the purpose of the report is to advise members on the work undertaken by Internal Audit, and it's between the 1st of April 2020 to the 31st of March 2021. And the purpose of the report is to provide a high level of assurance or otherwise on the internal controls operating across the council that have been subject to audit, to advise committee of any significant issues where controls need to be improved to effectively manage risks, to advise the committee of any amendments to the approved internal audit plan for 2021, to advise the committee of any changes to the audit processes and terminology, to track the response to the internal audit reports and the implementation of agreed internal audit recommendations, and to provide an update on our performance indicators, which involves comparing the actual performance against that we planned. So paragraph 2 of the report makes reference to the appendices. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to take members through some of these appendices in detail. So going to paragraph 3, progress against the planned work. So the summary of the agreed plan showing the status of each audit at the time of writing this report is attached within appendix 2. And as you can see, if you refer to appendix 2, which is detailed on page 9 of the minutes, there are 3 out of 8 assurance review and 1 advice and consultancy review included within the internal audit plan for 2021 have been completed. I'd just like to bring members' attention to the current COVID pandemic that we obviously all living with daily. Obviously, the delivery of the audit plan has been impacted by the onset of the coronavirus pandemic. And obviously, this has resulted in new ways of working between my service and the town council, which has involved remote access rather than visiting the premises and going to the town hall to do the audits. Now, where visits have been needed and records have needed to be collected, we have completed a risk assessment for each of the visits and each of the audit activities, and to make sure that our audit colleagues have actually got the required PPE to collect and return records. So I just wanted to point that out, because that is a different way of working to which we normally would do. During this progress report, there have been 2 reviews which have been completed, which are contained within appendices 5 and 6. And the recent reviews have been a review of the key financial system, and it's pleasing to note that it has provided a substantial assurance opinion. And there's been 1 recommendation which is medium raised and 2 best practice recommendation. And we've also carried out a review of the GDPR, which is a General Data Protection Regulation Arrangements, which has also provided a substantial assurance opinion and raised 2 medium priority recommendations. So what I'd like to do is I would like to come and go through those reports in some details with you, if that's okay, Chair. But before I do, I just want to basically also say that there's been no amendments to the audit plan during the last quarter, and there are no management responses to outstanding reports overdue neither. So what I'll do is I'll take you, if it's okay, to those 2 reports, assurance reports first, and then I'll come back to my main report, and I'll kind of bring members up to speed on the audit recommendation status, if that's okay. So if everybody could, for the purpose of the report, refer to page 12 onwards. So page 12 of the pack should bring you to, just double checking it is page 12, and it is, the internal audit report of the review of the key financial systems. So referring to page 14 of the report, this review was carried out in October and November 2020, and it involved evaluating the control framework in place at the management of risks associated with the key financial systems, which are creditors, debtors, income collection and banking arrangements, payroll, and main accounting and budgetary control. And again, paragraph 4 just makes reference to receiving documentations electronically, and where hard copy records were required, these were collected and returned to the town hall. There was no on-site testing carried out. Going to paragraph 6, the summary of the findings. So in relation to the period reviewed was from the 1st of October 19 to the 31st of August 2020, because this is a review that we carry out annually. So what we found that the following arrangements were working effectively. So with regard to the income collection and banking arrangements, it was confirmed that all cash, cheques and credit card payments received were recorded on a daily in the receipts journal. The receipts journal was correctly totalled for the period reviewed, and the weekly total for the whole periods agreed were confirmed to the bankers, and obviously the till reads as well, which is good. And 2 out of these bankers were examined further, and the individual amounts included in the banking were agreed to support and documentation as well. And monthly bank reconciliations were being carried out and were found to be up to date. In relation to debtors, there were fees and charges in place, and they had been agreed by the Policy and Resources Committee, and they were being correctly applied. There was a total of 615 invoices raised during the period reviewed, and the bulk of those were related to cemetery costs, garage fees, and charges for teas and coffees. And it was confirmed that those charges had been correctly applied. And then 13 further invoices were reviewed, and it was found that evidence was retained, the debtors had been promptly raised, and the payments had been traced as well, which is good. And in relation to the debt recovery, it was found that any outstanding debts and write-offs were being managed in line with the debt recovery policy and were being regularly reviewed. At the time of the audit being carried out, there were 36 debts that were owing to the town council. 5 of these had credits on their accounts in relation to deposits and advance payment made, which would actually reduce the debts. And a sample of 12 of these were reviewed as the sample size, and all had been actively followed up in line with the debt recovery policy. It was stated by the finance manager during the audit that it has been agreed by the town clerk in the early stages of the pandemic that recovery action would be suspended in order to avoid causing hardship and stress to the debtors. And the Policy and Resources Committee meetings were not, at the time of the work being carried out, hadn't been formally held, and this hadn't been formally documented. So I just did want to point that out. In relation to creditors, there were over 1,160 purchase orders raised in the period reviewed, and 14 of these were selected to be reviewed, and they'd all been authorised in line with the Council's financial regulations, which had been approved by the Policy and Resources Committee prior to payment. From March 2020, again, as we've reflected above, the meetings had been suspended due to the COVID-19 restrictions, and therefore, rather than meetings being held to approve the payments, the weekly payments were being authorised by the Town Clerk to avoid any delays in the Town Council paying the creditors. And the details were then reported to the Policy and Resources Committee in retrospect, which at the time of the audit, this arrangement was still in place. For contracts, it was confirmed that contract procedures were in place and contracts were held where required, and quotations had been required for 7 out of the 14 purchase orders reviewed, and the quotations were cited for all 7. In relation to payroll, the payroll procedures were in place, payroll reconciliations were being carried out on a monthly basis, and it was confirmed that staff were trained and could rotate duties to cover absences at annual leave if anybody wasn't actually at work, to make sure the payroll could be processed. And the changes to the payroll that were reviewed included starters, leavers, looking at timesheets if there'd been any overtime payment, and mileage claims were found to be agreed and authorised. Since the previous audit was carried out in the previous financial year, there had been 2 leavers, and we did check the details and confirmed that they had been correctly removed from the payroll and supporting document had been retained. And in relation to budgetary control, it was confirmed that regular budget monitoring and detailed reporting was being carried out and reported to the Policy and Resources Committee, and that regular meetings were held with budget holders and service managers. Paragraph 7 of the report makes reference to 2 actions from the previous audit that had not been implemented remained outstanding. And one of those was in relation to the raising the annual accounts for shop rents, which is due to be implemented in April 19. It was discussed, and we have discussed it at previous audit committee meetings, and that date has been reviewed until April 2021 because it's relating to the COVID pandemic. The second action that was raised at the time the previous key financial system audit report was issued made reference to GDPR training, and it was recommended that it should become a mandatory requirement for members to receive GDPR training. And although this was agreed by Policy and Resources Committee on the 3rd of March 20, and the minutes of that meeting were ratified on the 22nd of September, meetings, obviously those meetings, were ratified, but meetings have been suspended due to COVID. We just wanted to point out that obviously there are a number of members who haven't still received GDPR training, but they have been contacted and requested to undertake the training. And what was agreed was by the end of December 2020. And I just want to make reference to this when I come back earlier in my report, because this is actually an outstanding recommendation, which has a timescale which is now lapsed. So we do need to have a discussion on that, if that's okay, Chair. We have also since carried out a specific review of the GDPR arrangements, which was carried out around the same time that we did the key financial system review. And this is the second report that I do want to make reference to as well, which I'll come on to next. The key financial system review resulted in 1 medium recommendation, and it was in relation to the town hall hires. And what was confirmed is that at the moment it wasn't practice, at the time of the audit, it wasn't practice for written confirmation to be sent to hirers. And obviously that was something that we would recommend to make sure that the confirmation details are sent before events take place. 2 best practice recommendations made. One of them was in relation to from October 19 to March 20, which was prior to COVID. Bankings were made on an average of every 11 days. And obviously it's to make sure that if there is any income to be banked, that it doesn't exceed the insurance limit. And it's obviously we recommend that the bankings to be carried out on a weekly basis if possible. Then in relation to the Local Government Transparency Code 2015 regulation, we did find that documentation and policies required to be published are on the Town Council's website, but they weren't held in one place. And it was kind of difficult for anybody trying to navigate themselves around the website to find what they're looking for. So one of the things as a best practice recommendation that we basically asking for is to maybe look at the kind of layout and how things are recorded on that website, to see if anything can be done to make it a little bit more transparent and clear as to where documentation could be found. So that kind of brings you through, probably isn't summarised, but provides a little bit more detail in relation to that specific report. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions at this point, or you want me to continue, Chair?
Yes, so unless anyone has any questions, I'm happy for you to continue. Do you know I want to have a drink of water, Tracy? You should be
I'm
well.
okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, a couple of members have put in RTSs to speak.
Right, I can't actually see Catherine, so I do apologise. I can't see you guys.
No,
within Zoom.
that's okay.
Yeah, sorry. Let's have a look. Yeah, Councillor Enyard.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I had put the request in for item 5, just to move the minutes of the last meeting, but you moved on from that. As regards item 6, I just want to say it looks like a very positive report. It's very pleasing to have substantial assurance. I'd like to thank everybody involved with the audit report. It's obviously been difficult with the COVID pandemic, having to do things in a slightly different way. But I think it's a very reassuring report, and I'm sure the things that have been highlighted that need to be looked at will be dealt with. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Councillor Enyard. Councillor Machin.
Yeah, I'd echo Councillor Enyard's comments. I'd just like to ask the question: are the outstanding training, GDPR training, still outstanding for 11 members?
I am actually going to come back and talk about that if that's okay. I'm going to go back into the context of the progress report, and I would like to have a specific conversation around that, because there is still members who haven't participated in the GDPR training, and I was wanting to kind of have a conversation on it after I'd gone through the GDPR report, if that's okay, because it is mirrored again, which is a second report I do want to have a conversation on.
Tracy Woodhead, I think you would like a word.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just in relation to the recommendations in the key financial systems, so the medium priority recommendation, just so members know, that's actually complete now, so that is happening moving forward. With regard to the best practice, the banking, the girls have been reminded that they need to do the banking on a regular basis. During COVID, we're not taking very much income in the town hall, so it mightn't be every week, but if we do have banking, it will be on a weekly basis. But just to note, because we're not getting a lot of income in at the moment, it's not necessarily weekly. And with regard to the transparency data, I'm looking at that, so we should have that sorted out and up on the website in the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. I've got no one else on the chat screen, so do you want to move on, Tracy Henderson, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the next report of the appendices is page 20 of your pack. So this is the internal audit report, and it's the assurance review of the GDPR regulations, which does link into the question that we've just been asked. So this review, if I take you to page 22, so this review was carried out in October 2020, and it was to evaluate the control framework in place on managing the risks associated with the GDPR regulations. The objective of the review was to look at the council's arrangements and to protect individuals against misuse or abuse of information about them in line with the GDPR guidelines. as we've just touched on, it was a recommendation that was picked up as an area for training to be carried out in the report, the previous key financial system report I've just gone through. Obviously, there is still an issue, and because we've done a separate review of GDPR this year, what we've done is we've brought that recommendation with us as a live recommendation specifically linked to this report. Again, paragraph 4 is just saying about, doing audits remotely, receiving information electronically, no testing being carried out on site. Now, we have given this a substantial level of assurance based on the summary of findings from paragraph 6. And this is because we confirmed the following. There was a GDPR policy in place, which was published on the Town Council's website. There was also a privacy statement, which was published on the Town Council's website. And that stated how information is used, shared and protected, which had been communicated with all relevant employees. Just in the event of obviously getting any queries in from members of the public, asking some queries on data, obviously they can be directed to the website and the privacy statement. There was found to be an information asset register in place, which includes the asset title, description, asset location, information asset owner, purpose held and the retention period of data. The information was found to be held in a structured way on the network. Obviously what we did is we looked at network access to individuals to make sure that only individuals that needed to see relevant data could, and that was confirmed. There was a disposal index in operation to record data which had been destroyed or held in storage. There was a data breach process in operation, and staff were aware of what to do if there was a potential data breach, if any did occur, and that was checked at the time of the audit. And in relation to the GDPR training, this is now deemed to be compulsory by Town Council members, and that was agreed. We've already covered by the Policy and Resources Committee on the 3rd of March, but there is actually an outstanding issue with that. So at the time of the audit, 29 employees and 11 members had carried out the data protection and GDPR level 2 training, but 11 members had been enrolled on the training and had been contacted and requested to undertake the training by the end of December 2020. But at the time of writing this report, those members had not participated in the training. We have obviously, as a result of this, raised in this report 2 medium priority recommendations. One's in relation to the 11 members who hadn't completed the training, but what we also identified is the GDPR training list or record that was being retained didn't actually accurately reflect the training position. 3 employees did appear on the list and 2 members who had completed the training elsewhere, but this hadn't actually been recorded. So 2 recommendations which were live at the time that we've issued the report was for the training list to be brought up to date. And if you refer to page, I'll just quickly press my cursor, 26 of the report, you'll see the action plan that reflects that's been completed by Lisa York. In relation to action 2, this is in relation to the GDPR training, where the timescale has elapsed, which is the 31st of December 2020. And this, if you go back to my main progress report, and if you go up to pages 6 and 7, page 7, paragraph 14, does actually reflect that we've got 3 recommendations overdue against the original target date. And in 2 cases, we've got 2 recommendations, we've got revised timescales, but 1, which is the GDPR training, we haven't got a revised timescale for. And I think what I'd just like to take the opportunity to say, Chair, if that's okay, is just kind of how important GDPR training is, and kind of how I would just like to, I've participated in GDPR training, and it's surprising, what you think you know, but you don't know what you don't know. And it is quite interesting. And at the moment, with the change of the Data Protection Act and the GDPR coming in, the breach of data is actually taken very seriously. Not only if there is a data breach, can somebody personally take a case to basically sue somebody who would be liable. It's also a criminal offence under section 177 of the Act. And and the police do have the powers to prosecute, and it is taken seriously by all concerned. So I think I just wanted to say, I think just for members, members control data in a few ways. They represent the town council, they represent the constituents, and if they are a political member with a political party, they are also political party members. But the members also are individuals who act in their own right, and they represent themselves. Obviously, they're responsible for their own behaviour, and I just wouldn't like to see that the offer of GDPR training is there. And I just wouldn't like to see somebody not participating in that training when it's available. Obviously, with the town council offering the training, if members do kind of elect, not to do the training, then they are leaving themselves quite liable on all fronts. Because if there is a breach, this alone in relation to the courts and the criminal conviction potential of anything that might be, I think it's just doing some mitigating steps to make sure that, somebody doesn't succumb to something, either personal claim from an individual or a criminal act where they end up in court. And there are, if you Google, there are some kind of recent cases where people have been jailed for this. So I think I'd just like to personally say that I strongly recommend that all members of the town council should participate in the GDPR training which is being provided. And thank you. That I think for now summarises kind of what the main areas that I wanted to go through. I can come back to my report, Chair, if you'd like, and to take you through the performance indicators of my report to show how we're performing, if you would like me to do that, which is on page 10.
First of all, I think Catherine would like a word, then follow up with that, Tracy.
Yes, before we move away from GDPR, I hadn't actually realised that there was now a criminal offence attached to the breach, and those criminal offences could relate to the 2 breaches we've had recently. In order for the remaining 11 members to undertake the training, I think I need to bring a report to council, outline everything that Tracy's just recommended, the fact that we still have this outstanding audit action and it will remain outstanding until they do complete it, the fact that there is now a criminal offence and the different liabilities that attach to it. Now, we have the electronic training that was purchased for everyone, so obviously there's a waste of public money there if they're not doing it. But to try and assist some members who are not IT savvy, my other proposal is that with the IT training comes a manual you can download. I think I should make the offer that I download the manual and it's sent to all of the remaining 11 members and they're expected to read it, but then also sign a declaration that they have read and understand it and return it to the town council. I'm looking at it from the point of view as it's my role to protect the town council so that if a breach does occur, I can give as much evidence as possible to the ICO that the council as the legal body has done all that it can in relation to this. And then, it's up to members themselves. They can choose not to mitigate themselves from any personal action and any criminal action.
Right, thanks, Catherine. Catherine, at the pre-agenda, I did ask you if you could double check on other councils, if there'd been any fines and what the situation was in other areas of the country as regard councils being fined. I think you found some information. Can you tell us what that was, please? It's not in the report.
It wasn't information in relation to town and parish councils, and they only keep so much information on the ICO's website. It doesn't go back until when the ICO commenced in post, so I can't find much historical information, unfortunately, but there are examples of organisations being fined. And I did find one incident where a member of the public actually sued the town council. And that was made public because the council agreed to give him a compensation payment, but he refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement because he said they had maligned him in public and given out his personal information at a meeting. So he did receive compensation, and the town council also had to pay his legal fees.
Right, and was that a member, caused by a member, or an actual employee?
It was caused by a member talking about him at a meeting.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Okay, Tracy, no one's else to speak. Do you want to take it further, please?
Yeah, so page 10 of my report, and I appreciate I'm dotting about a little bit, but it just gives it the better context to talk about it in this order. So Appendix 3 is the performance indicators of the Internal Audit Service. So that's on page 10. So at the time of writing the report, 44% of the internal audit plan had been delivered. 4 reports had been issued, and all of those had been issued within the 30 calendar days that we say we issue draft reports following field work being complete or exit closure, we call them exit meetings, taking place. And the average time for that from the work being finished is 5 days. The response to the draft reports come back in, and we aim to finalise those within 14 calendar days. And of the reports that we have issued to final, we have managed to turn those around in 2 days. The terms of reference have been agreed for all work up front before any field works started. We've issued 13 recommendations. We've issued 5 client survey, and the average score of the client surveys which have come back to us has been a score of 4.1, and we do aim to score 4. So all of our PIs for the performance of the Internal Audit Service have been met. And that does bring me to page 11, which is the recommendation we've been speaking about. And it's the third recommendation where we do, need to determine the way forward on this GDPR training, because that original timescale obviously has not been adhered to, and we have not got a revised timescale at the current point in time. And that's,
Thank you, Tracy. I've got no one asking to speak, so if you just want to move on, please.
Okay, so that completes me summarising the internal audit progress.
Sorry, Tracy, Councillor Machin's just popped up. Is it just to speak on what we've just discussed, Councillor Machin?
It is, yeah. I'd just like to ask the question, have the 11 members who haven't undertaken the training, have they replied to the request to undertake it? And have they given a reason why they don't want to do the training? Or
No.
have they not replied at all?
They've not replied at all.
Okay, I think we'll come back to this when we get to the risk assessments, won't we? The risk register. Thank you.
Councillor Geldad, are you wanting to speak, or am I getting confused with 2 Ians here? I've got a RTS Ian just underneath Councillor Ian Machin. Are you wanting a word?
No, I'm quite content for now, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Renyard?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was just to say on the GDPR point about members who've yet to complete the training that's been offered. I think what the town clerk has said is a sensible way forward, that they should be reminded of the importance to themselves and to the council that this training should be completed, and that for those members who aren't able to access it electronically, that a hard copy is provided to them as per the town clerk's suggestion.
Yeah, I think that's a good recommendation. Okay, Tracy?
That completes the presentation of my report, Chair. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Tracy. That was very good.
Thank you.
Right. Audit plan. Audit action plan. Who's doing that?
That'll be me, Tracy Woodhead, Chair.
Carry on then, Tracy.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to go through them in detail. So item 7A is the audit action plan. So the summary page identifies what we've actually completed since the last audit committee meeting. So 4 items are completed, and we have 6 items ongoing, and the details on those are in the following pages. Some of them have already been covered by Tracy Henderson's report. Item 7B is the audit action plan pre-DCC taking over the audit, and again the details of the outstanding actions are included there. So if anybody has any questions or wants any further information.
I've got no one to speak. Was that someone saying something? I've got nothing on the chat room to speak. Okay, we'll...
Sorry, Chair, I've just put an RTS in. It's Catherine, the Town Clerk. If members are okay with it, I can get a report onto the agenda for full council this month, and we could give members a revised date to complete the GDR training of the 31st of March. So that would give them 1 clear month to complete the training.
Yeah, that seems fine. I think we should do that, Catherine.
Right, I'll do that.
Item 8, risk management.
I'll pick this up again, Chair, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So item 8A and B are the strategic and operational risk registers for information. So members are familiar with these now, and just so you know, we actually review these regularly at our senior management team. Again, I don't propose to go through these in detail, but if anybody has any comments, I think Councillor Machin certainly mentioned he had a comment to make.
Yes, Councillor Machin, you want to speak?
Yes, please. I think on the strategic risk register, item 6, which relates to GDPR, I think considering that we've the training, the mitigating action around the training hasn't been completed, and the likelihood of a breach seems to me to be more than low now, since we've got an investigation in place, that the item 6 should be revised to reflect the current position when the training hasn't been completed. I'd also like to say that we're making an assumption that completing the training means that the members will actually follow the guidance given in the training. So I'd like that to be emphasised at the next council meeting when this comes up. It's no point at all in being trained if you don't actually do anything as a result of the training.
I agree. I think we should review that, because just leaving it on green with all the reports that's been brought forward and all the concerns, I think it should be at least amber, if not red. We can make sure that everything is stated when Catherine brings a report forward. But to leave that on green, I think Councillor Machin is right. I think there should be a change on that.
Thank you, Chair.
Can I just come back in, Chair, then? We'll pick that up. We've got an SMT this week, so we'll review that one and bring it back to council. Risk registers have to be reported to council as part of governance by the end of March, so it'll be brought back to council at that point.
Thank you, Tracy. I've got nothing else on my chat screen to speak. Okay, do you want to move on, Tracy? Item 8B.
Sorry. I covered 8A and 8B together, so operational and strategic risk registers, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. So we'll see if anybody on chat. Well, I've got no one else down to speak. Does anybody want to speak?
Sorry, Councillor Thompson, I've just put an RTS in. I'd just like
Must
to
be coming through a little bit on the slow side.
I'd like to thank Tracy Henderson for the work that DCC Internal Audit are doing. We found it much better than we have with our previous internal auditor. No disrespect to him, but it's been a much more measured They've reviewed everything. They've made life easier for us. And the cooperation has been brilliant. So I'd just like to thank her for that. I'd also like to thank Tracy for making us all pull our socks up, because I hope that you've noticed that as we've gone along, the reports that we're getting a much higher level of assurance as we've gone along. And a lot of that's been down to Tracy Woodhead.
Yes, thank you for that, Tracy Henderson, and for Tracy Woodhead. And I must admit, even though we jumped around the report, we seem to be getting there a little bit quicker than we were to start with. So thank you. So
You're very welcome. Very welcome.
no one else got anything to say, so I'll just